They never gave him a proper name. People just called him Daniel because it was easy to shout when he did something wrong. Daniel, come here. Daniel, you thief. Daniel, useless boy. Nobody ever called his name with love. Daniel was born in a place where the sun burned like punishment and the rain only came to remind you how broken your roof was. The house he was born into was not really a house. It was four cracked walls that leaned on each other like tired old men, holding each other up so they wouldn't fall. His mother, Martha, screamed when she gave birth to him, not because of the pain, but because she already knew what kind of life was waiting for the child. The midwife wiped the baby and sighed. "Another mouth," she said softly. "Another mouth. Not another blessing, not another joy, just another mouth." That was the first sentence spoken about Daniel. Daniel's earliest memory was hunger, not the type where you feel small hunger and eat later. This one was the kind that made your stomach cry so loud you felt ashamed, the kind that made your head spin and your legs shake when you stood up too fast. Some nights, hunger slept beside him like a wicked friend. He would lie on the cold floor, staring at the holes in the roof, counting stars through them, pretending each star was food. One star was rice, another was bread, another was meat he had never tasted. When rain fell, it fell directly on his face. Martha would drag an old nylon over him and whisper, "Sorry, my son, tomorrow go better." Tomorrow never came. Daniel never knew his father. People said the man left when Martha's belly started to show. Others said he ran when he realized love doesn't pay rent. Some said he died. Daniel preferred to believe he died. It was easier to accept death than abandonment. Sometimes he imagined his father as a hero, tall, strong, rich, a man who would one day return and say, "Daniel, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were suffering." But no one ever came. Only hunger, only shame, only poverty. Daniel started school barefoot. The first day, other children laughed. "See him leg? See dirty boy? Na beggar peekin'." The teacher looked at him, sighed, and pointed to the back. "Sit there." No smile, no welcome. Daniel loved school, but school did not love him back. He had no books, no lunch, no uniform. When other children brought food, he swallowed saliva and pretended he wasn't hungry. Sometimes he picked leftover crumbs from the floor after break time. One day, hunger defeated him. He fainted in class. When he woke up, the teacher was angry. "Why you come school if you no fit eat, go house?" He walked home alone, dizzy, ashamed, crying quietly so nobody would hear. That was the day Daniel learned a painful truth. Poverty makes people see you as a problem. Martha worked like a machine that never rested. She washed clothes for people who looked down on her. She cleaned houses where she was not allowed to sit. She begged sometimes, quietly, with shame burning her throat. At night, when she thought Daniel was asleep, she cried. Daniel heard everything. He heard her whisper prayers. He heard her apologize to God. He heard her say, "I no suppose born am into this kind life." Those words cut deeper than hunger. From that night, Daniel made a promise in his heart. "One day my mother will not cry again." He was only 7 years old. The sickness came quietly. Martha started coughing. At first she laughed it off. "Nah, small cold," she said. But the cough refused to leave. Then came weakness, then blood. Daniel begged for help, but help costs money, and they had none. One night, Martha held Daniel's hand tightly. "My son," she whispered, struggling to breathe. "No matter what in life do you, no become bitter." She smiled weakly. "I love you." That was the last smile he ever saw. She died before morning. Daniel screamed until his voice disappeared. At 8 years old, Daniel became an orphan. No relatives came. No neighbors stayed long. Everyone said the same thing. Poor woman, poor boy. But pity doesn't feed you. Pity doesn't stay. The landlord threw him out. "This place no be orphanage." Daniel carried his mother's wrapper and walked with nowhere to go. That night he slept under a bridge, cold, hungry, terrified. For the first time, he asked God a question he had never dared to ask. Why me? God did not answer. The streets have rules. If you don't learn them quickly, you die. Daniel learned how to beg without crying, how to sleep with one eye open, how to run when older boys came. He watched children his age steal, smoke, fight. Sometimes he joined them, not because he wanted to, but because hunger doesn't listen to morals. Still, something inside him refused to die. Every time he saw a rich man pass, something burned in his chest. Not envy, not hatred, but a question. How did you escape this life? One night, while lying on cardboard, Daniel whispered to himself, I go survive. I go suffer, but I no go die here. I go make Am. No one heard him. No one believed him. But that promise became the only thing keeping him alive. Daniel was 9 years old when the streets stopped scaring him. Not because they became kinder, but because fear had finished its work on him. Once fear does everything it can, it leaves you empty, and empty people are dangerous because they have nothing left to lose. Under the bridge, Daniel learned how to wake up before dawn, before hunger started shouting. Morning was safer. People were more generous when guilt was fresh. By afternoon, kindness disappeared. Daniel met Uncle Ben on a dusty street corner. He was a big man with tired eyes and a voice that sounded like it had been shouting at life for too long. He sold roasted corn and sometimes groundnuts. He noticed Daniel watching him every day. One evening, he called out, Boy, you dey hungry? Daniel hesitated. Hunger said yes. Fear said no. Uncle Ben tossed him a corn. Eat. Daniel devoured it like it might disappear. From that day, Uncle Ben started letting him help. Small things. Fetch water. Watch the fire. Shout customers. At night, Uncle Ben sometimes shared food with him. For the first time since his mother died, someone spoke to him like a human being. Wettin' your name? Daniel, sir. No, call me, sir. Call me Uncle Ben. That name sounded like safety. Uncle Ben noticed something strange about Daniel. The boy asked questions, not street questions, not stealing questions, life questions. Uncle Ben, how person fit escape poverty? Why rich people know they look poor people eye. If person work hard, he go always make am. One night, Uncle Ben laughed sadly. Daniel, work hard no always enough. That answer disturbed Daniel. If hard work wasn't enough, then what was? One afternoon, Daniel saw children in uniform walking past. Something twisted inside him. That night, he told Uncle Ben, I want go school. Uncle Ben stared at the fire for a long time. School cost money. I go work, Daniel said quickly. Anything. Silence. Then Uncle Ben sighed. Okay, we try. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Hope is loud when it first arrives. Daniel worked harder than ever. Morning, corn stand. Afternoon, carrying loads at the market. Night, cleaning shops. He was always tired, always hungry. But he smiled. Uncle Ben registered him in a cheap public school. The uniform was second-hand. The shoes were too big. But Daniel didn't care. He was back. School had not changed. Children laughed again. Teachers ignored him again. But this time, Daniel endured it, because now he had something to lose. He became one of the best students, not because he was gifted, but because failure scared him more than hunger. One evening, Daniel returned to the corn stand. Uncle Ben was gone. The stand was empty, the pot missing, the fire cold. A neighbor shook his head. He done run. Daniel laughed at first. Run go where? But Uncle Ben never came back. Days passed, weeks passed. Then Daniel heard the truth. Uncle Ben had used Daniel's labor to save money and left the city. No goodbye, no explanation. Daniel sat behind the stand and stared at nothing. Something inside him cracked, not loudly, quietly. This betrayal hurt more than hunger, more than homelessness, because it came with hope first. Without Uncle Ben, everything collapsed. No food, no school, no shelter. Daniel dropped out again. That night, rain fell hard. He curled under cardboard, shaking, and for the first time in his life, Daniel cried without stopping. He wasn't crying because of hunger. He wasn't crying because of the cold. He was crying because he believed someone, and they proved him wrong. At 12 years old, Daniel stood at the edge of the bridge. Cars rushed below. Lights blurred. Noise swallowed his thoughts. He thought of his mother. He thought of Uncle Ben. He thought of all the tomorrows that never came. "If I jump," he whispered, "everything go end." For a moment, the idea felt peaceful. Then a memory hit him. His mother's voice. "No matter what in life do you, no become bitter." Daniel stepped back. He sat down. He shook. He breathed. He didn't die that night. But something else was born. Daniel stopped begging. He stopped expecting kindness. He started observing. He watched how money moved, who controlled it, who obeyed it. He realized something powerful. Poor people work with their bodies. Rich people work with systems. That idea changed everything. After that night under the bridge, Daniel stopped praying the way he used to. Not because he no longer believed in God, but because he didn't know what to say anymore. What do you tell a God that has watched you suffer for years and said nothing? So Daniel kept quiet. By 13, Daniel was already a man in the eyes of the streets, not because he wanted to be, but because childhood had abandoned him early. He knew which areas were safe, which boys were dangerous, which police officers took bribes, which shop owners pretended not to see hungry children stealing. He learned to sleep lightly, to eat fast, to trust nobody fully. Smiling became a skill. Silence became a weapon. Daniel started moving with older boys, not friends, survivors. Boys who had scars on their faces and anger in their eyes. Boys who laughed too hard and slept too little. They taught him things no school would ever teach. How to escape when caught, how to distract people, how to steal without violence. At first, Daniel resisted, but hunger does not respect morals. The first thing he stole was bread. He shook for hours after, not from fear, but from shame. By the fifth time, his hands were steady. That scared him more than anything. One evening, one of the boys, Sola, handed Daniel some cash. "Your share." Daniel stared at the money. It wasn't much, but it was the first money he ever earned that nobody took from him. That night, he ate properly, he slept full, and for the first time in years, he didn't dream of hunger. That was the moment he understood something dangerous. Bad money still solves real problems, but guilt is patient. It waited. It waited until Daniel passed a woman begging with a child that looked like him. It waited until he saw a boy crying because his food was stolen by someone just like him. Daniel avoided mirrors because when he looked at himself, he saw the streets winning. When Daniel was 15, something unexpected happened. A man stopped him. Not a police officer, not a street boy, a well-dressed man in his late 30s. "I've been watching you," the man said calmly. Daniel's body stiffened. "Relax," the man smiled. "You're smart. I can see it." The man introduced himself as Mr. Aid. He offered Daniel a job. Not stealing, not begging, work, cleaning an office, running errands, learning basic computer work. Daniel didn't trust it. Nothing good came without a price. But desperation pushed him forward. The office was quiet, air-conditioned, clean. Daniel felt out of place, but Mr. Aid was patient. He taught him small things, how to type, how to organize files, how to speak properly. Daniel absorbed knowledge like a starving man eats food. For the first time in years, he felt human again. But something wasn't right. Mr. Aid asked too many questions about the streets, about who controls what, about how things move illegally. Daniel answered carefully. Still, he needed the money. One evening, Mr. Aid said quietly, "You know, Daniel, people like you either stay poor forever or they learn how the real world works." Daniel didn't reply, but those words stayed with him. Soon Mr. Aid asked for a favor, just one. Deliver this package. Daniel looked at it. It was sealed, heavy. What's inside? He asked. Mr. Aid smiled. Opportunity. Daniel's chest tightened. This was the moment. The same moment life had offered him many times before. The moment where survival asked him to compromise his soul. He remembered his mother's voice. He remembered Uncle Ben. He remembered the bridge. And he took the package. Daniel delivered it. He was paid well. Too well. That night he stared at the money in his hands and felt nothing. No joy, no guilt, just silence. That silence scared him more than hunger ever did, because it meant something inside him was changing. Daniel did not ask questions anymore. Questions made things heavy. Silence made things easier. After the first delivery, Mr. Aid gave him another, then another. Each time the package got heavier and the money got cleaner, newer, more dangerous. Daniel upgraded slowly. Better clothes, a rented room, 3 meals a day. From the outside, it looked like progress. Inside, something was rotting. At 17, Daniel finally slept on a bed. The first night, he didn't sleep. The mattress felt too soft, too undeserved. He kept waiting for someone to kick the door open and shout, "Thief!" Nobody came. Money has a way of quieting fear, temporarily. One evening, Mr. Aid invited Daniel to sit. "You're different," he said calmly. "You don't talk too much. You observe. That's why you'll go far." Daniel nodded. Then Mr. Aid leaned forward. "But understand this. The world is not fair. It never was. The rich didn't get rich by being good. They got rich by being smart." Daniel asked quietly, "Smart how?" Mr. Aid smiled. "By doing what others are afraid to do." Daniel didn't know where the packages went. He didn't want to know. But one night he overheard a conversation he wasn't meant to hear. 2 men arguing, whispers of guns, a name mentioned, someone Daniel recognized from the street. The next morning, that person was dead, shot. Daniel's stomach twisted. He looked at his hands. They were clean, but were they? Daniel stopped eating. The food tasted like guilt. Sleep became shallow. Dreams became loud. In one dream, his mother stood in front of him, silent, staring. No anger, no forgiveness, just disappointment. Daniel woke up sweating. The job that changed everything came suddenly. "Last one," Mr. Aid said. "Easy." Daniel should have walked away, but he didn't. On the road, police sirens screamed, gunshots, chaos. Daniel ran. A bullet grazed his arm. He fell into a gutter, bleeding, shaking, crying silently. For the first time since childhood, he prayed, "God, if you save me, I'll stop." The sirens faded. Daniel survived. Daniel stormed into the office the next day. "I'm done," he said. Mr. Aid looked at him calmly. "You think you can just leave?" Daniel's voice shook. "I didn't sign my life away." Mr. Aid smiled, but his eyes were cold. "You already did when you took the first package." That was the truth. That night, Daniel ran. No plans, no destination, just fear pushing him forward. He left the city with nothing but a bag and scars on his arm. Behind him, blood money, broken promises, a past that could catch up with him any time. Ahead of him, nothing, but sometimes nothing is better than hell. On a dusty road at dawn, Daniel sat and cried, not silent tears, ugly tears. He remembered the promise he made as a child. "I go survive." This time he added something new, "but I go survive clean." Daniel walked for hours, dust in his shoes, hunger gnawing at his stomach. His arm still throbbed from the bullet graze. Every sound made him flinch. The wind, a dog barking, a car engine. He expected Mr. Aid or someone else to appear from the shadows, but nothing came. For the first time, Daniel realized he was free. free from the money that stained his hands, free from people who used fear to control him, free to fail or succeed on his own. He found a small village by a river. Nobody knew him. Nobody cared. That anonymity felt like heaven. The first job came quickly. A farmer needed help. Daniel's hands had known harder labor than planting rice, but he still struggled. The farmer, a kind old man named Mr. Oba, noticed his determination. "You work well, boy," Mr. Oba said one evening. "You'll go far if you keep your heart in the right place." Daniel didn't respond. He smiled faintly, letting his work speak. Daniel earned his first honest money, $10, not much, not enough to survive a week in the city, but in the village it bought food. He ate rice with stew, savoring each bite like it was gold. For the first time in years, he felt pride in his own hands. That night, he slept without fear. The promise whispered in his heart, "I go survive clean." But the world has a long memory. One morning, a group of boys approached him, faces from the streets. They laughed when they saw him. "Daniel, thought you ran from us, eh?" They offered him a job. Easy money, fast, just like before. All he had to do was deliver some packages. Daniel felt his old hunger return, the one that was never just about food. This hunger demanded comfort, safety, power. But this time he remembered the blood, the sirens, the night he almost died. He shook his head. No. While working on the farm, Daniel met a girl about his age, Amara. She was shy, gentle, and intelligent. She studied under candlelight every evening while Daniel chopped wood. Amara asked questions he had forgotten how to answer, about books, about the world, about dreams. "Why do you work so hard if it doesn't make you rich?" she asked one evening. Daniel looked at her, thinking of the streets, Uncle Ben, Mr. Aid, and his mother. He smiled faintly. "Because some things are worth more than money," he whispered. Her eyes glimmered. Daniel realized for the first time there could be more to life than survival. Over the next year, Daniel worked every day, ate humbly, slept with aching muscles, and learned from everyone around him. He learned patience. He learned humility. He learned that real strength comes from persistence, not shortcuts. Every night he prayed quietly, not for money, not for revenge, not for miracles. He prayed, "Let me live honest. Let me survive with clean hands." By the end of the year, Daniel could save a little, enough to repair his room, buy better clothes, and even help the village children with books. For the first time in years, Daniel felt hope. Hope was slow, hope was fragile, but it was real. And as he lay on his bed, the moonlight shining through the window, Daniel whispered, "I go survive. I go make but I go make the right way." Daniel was 18 when he realized something crucial. You cannot escape poverty by running from it forever. He had survived the streets, he had survived betrayal, he had survived hunger, but surviving alone didn't give him freedom. It only gave him experience, and experience could be turned into opportunity. One morning, while helping Mr. Oba carry goods to the market, Daniel noticed something. The villagers paid middlemen too much for basic supplies, rice, oil, soap. If someone bought directly from the city and sold at fair prices, the villagers would save money, and that person could make a living. Daniel saw a way out. Not fast, not dirty, honest. "If I start small, I can grow," he whispered to himself. But starting small was not easy. Daniel had no capital, just determination and a notebook with his calculations. He sold what little he had, a few coins, a few hours of labor, anything. His first attempt failed. The cart he borrowed broke. The supplier overcharged him. Villagers laughed at the city boy trying to play businessman. He almost gave up. But the memory of nights under the bridge, the bullet, and the betrayal reminded him, pain is temporary. Giving up is permanent. Daniel studied everything he could. How prices worked, how to talk to suppliers, how to negotiate, how to earn trust. Every failure became a lesson. Every lesson became experience. Slowly, Daniel gained a small but steady profit, enough to survive, enough to dream bigger. Amara was by his side. She offered her time, her encouragement, her knowledge. Together, they calculated profits, counted stock, and planned deliveries. "Don't rush," Amara said one night. "The fast way is often the wrong way." Daniel smiled, remembering his past. The streets taught him fast ways. Now he had patience. After months, Daniel saved enough to buy a small cart and stock it with supplies. The villagers noticed. Sales picked up. People trusted him. Slowly, they stopped relying on middlemen. Daniel began to feel something new: pride. Not the pride of the streets, not the pride of survival, but the pride of creating something with his own hands. He looked at the cart and whispered, "This is mine. Not stolen, not cursed, mine." Success attracted attention, not all friendly. One supplier demanded more money. One rival tried to sabotage his cart. One former street friend tried to lure him back to illegal schemes. Daniel faced them all, not with violence, not with shortcuts, but with wit, patience, and integrity. It was the first time he realized genuine wealth requires strategy, courage, and discipline. By the end of that year, Daniel's business was small but stable, enough to save, enough to plan. He learned money without morals is dangerous. Patience pays more than speed. Allies are worth more than gold. Daniel smiled quietly that night. For the first time, he felt hope without fear. Daniel was 20 when people stopped calling him that poor boy. They started calling him Daniel the Traitor. It wasn't fame, it wasn't wealth, but it was respect. And for someone who grew up invisible, respect felt heavy and strange. Every morning his cart rolled through the village roads. Children waved, women smiled, men nodded. Trust had a sound, and Daniel could hear it now. But respect has a shadow. Where people see progress, others see opportunity to exploit. With steady savings, Daniel made a bold move. He partnered with a supplier in the city and began buying goods in bulk. The margins were better, the risk was higher. Amara warned him, "Growth without caution can break you." Daniel listened, but he also knew fear had held him down before. This time he moved carefully. Daniel was 26 when people started calling him Sir, not out of respect alone, but out of fear of losing access. His business had grown beyond villages. Trucks now carried his goods, contracts were signed. Numbers on paper finally began to look unreal. This was the life he once dreamed of under a bridge, and yet peace was missing. With money came noise. Everyone wanted a piece. Relatives who never visited, friends who never helped, partners with urgent opportunities. Daniel learned a new kind of hunger, the hunger for more. He worked longer hours. He slept less. He smiled in public and worried in private. Amara noticed first. "You're changing," she said gently. Daniel waved it off. "I'm just busy." But busy people still rest. He didn't. An investor brought a proposal: huge returns, fast expansion, high stakes. The old Daniel would have run. The new Daniel calculated. He signed. For weeks things soared. Profits doubled, then tripled. People praised him. News spread. His name carried weight. Daniel thought, maybe this is it. Maybe I've finally arrived. It happened quietly, a delay, then another, then silence. The investor vanished, funds frozen, suppliers unpaid, staff anxious. Daniel sat in his office staring at numbers that no longer made sense. History was repeating itself. But this time the fall was louder. Amara fell sick. Stress, exhaustion, neglect. Daniel rushed her to the hospital, but money couldn't buy time. She held his hand weakly. "You did well," she whispered. "Don't let success steal your soul." She died that night. Daniel screamed. Not like a man, like a child. The same sound he made when his mother died. Daniel shut down. The business survived, But he didn't live in it anymore. He attended meetings, signed papers, but his spirit was gone. Money filled his accounts. Emptiness filled his chest. At night, he sat alone and asked God again, "Why now?" God was silent. One evening, Daniel opened an old notebook, the one he used when he had nothing. On the first page was a sentence he wrote years ago, "I go survive clean." He cried, not because he was poor again, but because he had lost sight of why he wanted to succeed. Daniel disappeared from the spotlight. Not suddenly, not dramatically. He just stopped chasing noise. Meetings were delegated. Expansion paused. Interviews declined. People whispered, "Something is wrong with him. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he's finished." Daniel didn't care. For the first time in his life, he allowed himself to feel. He returned to the village. The same dusty roads, the same river, the same quiet nights. In the small room he once shared with dreams, Daniel mourned Amara properly. No money, no business, no strategy, just grief. He cried until tears became memories. He talked to her photograph like she could hear him. He apologized for choosing growth over presence. Grief stripped him naked, and nakedness brings truth. One night, Daniel asked himself something he had avoided for years. If money disappears tomorrow, who am I? The answer scared him, so he stayed with the question. One afternoon, Daniel noticed children studying under a tree, barefoot, torn books, bright eyes. He froze. He saw himself, the hunger, the hope, the waiting. Without planning, he sat with them. He answered questions, explained lessons, listened. For the first time since Amara's death, something inside him moved. Daniel started coming every day. He brought books, chairs, a whiteboard. Soon, parents noticed, then elders. "What are you doing?" someone asked. Daniel replied softly, "I'm becoming who I needed." One evening, a familiar face appeared. Mr. Aide, older, less powerful, still smiling. "I heard you did well," he said. Daniel looked at him calmly. No anger, no fear, no desire for revenge, just clarity. "You taught me what shortcuts cost," Daniel said. "For that I forgive you." Mr. Aide had no reply. Daniel restructured everything. He kept wealth but removed greed. He invested but with values. He built schools, supported orphans, funded honest businesses. He became rich again. But this time, nothing inside him died. One evening, Daniel stood alone. He whispered, "Mama, you can rest now." The wind moved softly. Peace settled. Daniel was 42 when people started telling his story for him. They told it in offices, in classrooms, in churches, on dusty streets where children still slept hungry. They said, he was once homeless. They say he was rich, then broke, then rich again. They say he lost everything and still won. But none of them truly knew the whole story. Only Daniel did. One morning, Daniel stood on a stage, not as a businessman, not as an investor, as a testimony. He looked into the crowd and saw faces that reminded him of himself, young, tired, hopeful, broken. He spoke calmly. "I was born poor, I slept hungry, I did things I'm not proud of. I made money that almost destroyed me. I lost people I loved." The room was silent. Then he said the sentence that defined his life. "Money didn't save me. Meaning did." Daniel didn't build statues, he built systems. Schools that stayed open even when donations stopped, scholarships for children nobody wanted, businesses that paid fair wages, safe homes for boys who would have become what he almost became. He refused to put his name on buildings. "When the name becomes more important than the work," he said, "you've already failed." One evening, Daniel returned to the bridge, the same bridge. Traffic roared below, lights blurred. Life moved fast. He stood where he once stood as a boy, thinking of jumping. He smiled, not because life was easy now, but because he survived himself. He whispered, "You didn't win." Not to the bridge, to poverty. to bitterness, to despair. At home, Daniel kept a letter. He never mailed it, never showed it to anyone. It was addressed to his mother. It read, "Mama, I suffered, but I didn't become cruel. I became careful. I became patient. I became useful. You didn't give me money. You gave me a heart that refused to harden. I made it." He folded the letter, put it away. Some victories are private. Daniel was rich, yes, undeniably, but not because of numbers. He was rich because hunger no longer scared him, betrayal no longer controlled him, money no longer owned him. He slept peacefully, he laughed freely, he loved deeply. That was the wealth he fought for. Years later, a young boy asked him, "Sir, how did you become successful?" Daniel knelt down to his level. He said softly, "I didn't quit, and I didn't sell my soul. That was all."